Stine's not just the retail. It's not just the farm. It's not just the genetics. There's so many different pieces of our pie. And when you understand where you fit in with that, I think we can be way more effective and efficient than we used to be.
This is the Stine Seedcast. I'm your host, David Thompson. Join me as we visit with growers, agronomists, seed experts, and other industry professionals about seed, agronomy, and the business of farming. And welcome to the Stine Seedcast. I'm David Thompson, National Marketing and Sales Director for Stine Seed Company. Today on the Seedcast, my special guest is Renae Schmidt. Renae is our Customer Experience and Internal Training Director for Stine Seed Company. Welcome to Seedcast, Renae.
Thanks, David.
So Renae's here to talk to us today about her journey to Stine and her time with Stine Seed Company and the things she does to support our sales team, both in terms of helping them with paperwork and also helping them feel empowered and trained so they can hit the ground running every year. So let's get started.
Sure.
Well, so Renae, to get us started, I always like to hear a little bit about your background. So maybe tell us about yourself, tell us about your journey to Stine.
Sure. I was a farm girl. Raised on a farm in Northwest Iowa, pretty typical farm family, very involved in 4-H and FFA, and went to Iowa State, go Cyclones.
Yep.
Got my degree in ag education, and my plan was to teach. I had some really great internships in agronomy, in chemicals, in seed treatment, some of those things, and they showed me more the business route. And so then I went into my first sales job. Did that for a couple of years, and we started a family. We had moved to Indiana at the time and decided it was my time to stay home and raise a family. And so we did. We moved a few times with my husband's job, and we were both in Indiana and North Carolina. And the position came open to be able to move back to central Iowa. And so that right now was about 10 years ago. Uh-huh. We found our way back to the Adel area, and lo and behold, the Stine Seed Farm circles all around our acreage, and we can see Harry's Tower just down the road. Yep.
Yep. And so, like I said, you grew up on a farm in Northwest Iowa. Yep. You're still very rooted in all of the things of typical agriculture, kids in FFA and all of that good stuff, right?
Yep. We've done the 4-H route, the FFA route. We have 4 kiddos that have all been very involved. We love our cows, and just trying to give our kids, life's changed. We don't row crop, my husband and I, but we do give them as much farm ag experience as we can. And I think they've taken that and ran with it. So It's a good foundation.
Good. Yeah. So you talked about your early career and some of that. I just wondered, and you talked about wanting to go into education. So I think a part of that is kind of learning from those that come before you. Are there specific people you consider to be mentors, people that influenced you early on in your career that you found really valuable for their input?
Yeah, you don't always know it when you're going through those years, and you're young, and you just think, gosh, I want to land a good job. And but what you don't maybe realize is the people that have been put in your place to help mentor you. So when I look back, I think I had great ag advisors who really pushed me, not just in the ag part, but the leadership roles, public speaking, parliamentary procedure. Amazing when I sit in on meetings now. We use all of those things back that we learned in high school. I had older sales reps in my first internships and jobs who had really wise words that again, at the time, I'm not sure I totally understood, but now I do. I'm probably their age, honestly. And I always hope that I can gain some or give some wisdom back to younger people. Just a lot of wise women in my life. And, now I also think my parents. I watched my parents live the farm life. That's just how it was. It wasn't fancy, but I am super thankful for those roots and foundation. It's what I want to give my kids. But I look at the hard work and the tenacity. You don't stop till the job's done, and just good American farm values. And so all of those things put together, I think, got us where we are now.
Yep. Good. So when you started with us, you were hired into our sales support, what we called sales support group. If I remember, I think you were the first person we hired when we came to Dallas Center.
Yes, that is true.
Now you're in a role where you kind of head up that initiative. We call it customer experience. So a little broader definition. So I was going to ask you, I guess, when you define the term customer experience, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's so many things we can't control. We can't control the weather. We can't control the commodity prices. We can't control programs. I mean, I can't. You can. No. So many things we can't control. But we can control our customer service that we give to our growers. And whether that's me with our sales force or our sales force with their growers, I think we're all in a level of sales and giving an experience in our process. A lot of those mentors taught me about people's personalities, about communication, about how people purchase, just all those different nuggets. And I think all of those things go into our experience. Communication is key. I think setting the expectations of what we expect, right? And we're always talking about process. That stuff is not always very fun. I get it. The sales side is the fun part, but I always say we want to keep people legal and get them paid. And we hope it's a smooth, non-chaotic process. And so the more expectations we can have up front, the more hopefully we will get to that end result and people will not only be happy, but hopefully we will have exceeded expectations.
And, recently we've added a new facet to your skill set, which is that of what we call internal training, which I think is a great complement to the customer experience part, which is obviously tends to be more grower focused. But talk a little bit about the internal training initiative and how you think that melds in with the whole customer experience side.
Sure. So for me, it's the little details. And, for us internally, one of the neat things about Stine and being a family-owned company is it's not a one-size-fits-all. So we value the 20-acre grower as much as we value the 20,000-acre grower and everyone in between. So some of the little details I'm thinking is, are we dealing with someone in the I-states? That's who we used to deal with, and we deal with corn and soybeans. Is someone in North Carolina? Is someone in Georgia? What does their growing season look like? What maybe exception are they asking? What high dollar crop are we up against? Maybe a cotton or a peanut field, not just a corn field. And what does that mean in our process? An expectation internally. And so it's those little details of what keeps our sales reps up at night, what's stressing them out, what can I do to help their experience and process go a little bit smoother? What do I need to communicate to you as my boss, to billing, to accounting? How can we work with this grower a little bit better to not just work in, in our surrounding community of our comfort, but also if we're going to do national business in all the states, that takes a little bit more details outside the box. And I love it. It's a challenge.
Well, it seems to me like your role is kind of an interesting spot, kind of on the cusp of both sides, right? There's process, which most times nobody likes because it's very basic and functional, and then there's the relationship and the sales process. Both are necessary and both happen, and they both tend to converge right at your desk, it seems like. So, again, how do you manage those challenges of dealing with the reality of the world that, again, we live in an unpredictable world. We work in an occupation or in a industry where the biggest factors are out of our control. So how do you bring that to your learning as it relates to customer experience and training of ISRs?
Sure. What I like to think of is it's not an event, it's a lifestyle. And for me, it's a daily lifestyle. Sometimes we're at a new ISR training and there's 25 plus people and we're talking to that many. Sometimes it's a regional meeting and there's 10 plus people. Sometimes it's a Friday in my office with my team. I call that a Fun Fact Friday, where we dig into some, usually it's a program that we're dealing with. It also could be a process. Sometimes, or in the past, it's been, hey, we're going to go to the field today and watch them harvest. This is how we harvest corn, and this is why. Sometimes it's, we're going to go down to the lab and we're going to watch the guys. They're counting counting and processing beans because things are going to Guyana for the next planting season, and here's why. And I think when we get a better feel of where we stand in the whole picture, you can understand what we do a little bit better. Sometimes it's one-to-one. I think I do maybe our best training just one-to-one. A customer call, an ISR. An ISR calls, an ISR stops in, and we just talk through the situation and find a win.
So as we're continuing to talk about the training side of things, I guess, how do you approach training to try to make sure that our sales team members are going to the field confident as they can that they've got all the tools and resources they need to be successful? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So my approach is say it, show it, and try it. I know I'm a visual learner, so I can hear it, and that's great. But then I need to see it. Here's in real life what this looks like, and then try it. None of us want to fail. So we're all afraid a little bit, especially as we get older. I don't want to mess anything up and cause an issue, or that's embarrassing. Just try it. And most of the time I'll say, I've got your back. Play around. If you have an issue, I'll delete it. No harm, no foul. But that's what we have to do. The more we are confident and we understand our tools and what we have to work with, I think the more confidence we can take to our growers and the more value it brings them. Also, I love connecting people. I know I don't have all the answers, but I think within our group, we have so many talented people. And I will go back to one of our last trainings. I asked you the history of the company better than anybody else. Maybe Harry knows it better, but right?
I would say so.
You're pretty good.
Yeah.
I know the sales directors know their regions. I know that an ISR knows what goes on in, their radius. And so instead of me feeling like I need to do it all, we're going to connect you with somebody that does. An agronomist, we have such talented agronomists in our system. Researchers, let's get you the true answer. Why? And the more confident, again, you are, the more confident you can be going and making that sale. And showing the value of why you should work with Stine Seed.
Yep. And you don't have to know all the answers. You just have to know the people that do.
That do. You are right. You are right.
That's been a hallmark there. So switching gears back to kind of the grower-facing side of things, I would certainly say within my team, there's probably no one who has a better pulse of what's happening in the field with the ISRs and at the grower level than you. We talk a lot on the Seedcast about issues that growers face, whether it's diseases, pests, just the overall, industry and so forth. I mean, are there certain challenges? What are the challenges that you see the high level things that are really driving customer and ISR, decisions right now?
Sure. So we know that certainly the commodity pricing is playing a huge role in our company and in any ag company right now. I would say technology. How do you be on the cutting edge? How do you have the 80-year-old grower and the 18-year-old grower be able to understand that? You know that well. And just the size and scope of operation that it takes. And being able to maneuver a win for each of those things. Whether you're the big guy or the little guy. What do we have for that? Do we understand them and where they're coming from? Obviously, commodity pricing. Are you going to be farming next year? How do we help this grower to stay in business, and what value can we bring to them? Just knowing those basic needs. Again, what keeps them up at night? How can we help them to stay afloat?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I've told groups, farmers have a lot to worry about. Our job is to try to make sure seed isn't one of those things on the list to the best that we can. So in terms of customer experience, I guess I would say success can look like a lot of different things, I would imagine. And oftentimes, I think you would agree, the phone doesn't ring very often where they say, I just want to tell you everything's going perfectly. And I have no and nothing can happen that's better than what I got now. Oftentimes the phone rings. There's something that someone has a concern about or something we need to deal with. So I guess from your standpoint, I wondered if you had any examples of what you consider to be a success story from a customer experience standpoint that you've dealt with.
Yeah. I remember years ago hearing people say, "Oh, my job is to solve problems." And at that time I thought, I don't want that job. That sounds scary. And now I do think every time my phone rings, it's maybe 1 out of 100 someone calls and says, "Gosh, thanks. This worked out really well." But it could be anywhere from the grower, the grower's wife, the ISR, the sales director, the agronomist. It really, it could be anybody in between. But I kind of thrive on that. And I want to find that win. There's always an answer. So let's dig in. I think that's where putting your ear to the ground. I try really hard, talking about the challenges, your previous question, just always having my ear to the ground and understanding, trying to ask more questions and understand where people are coming from helps me put that story together. There's always if there's an issue, it means there's a missing piece somewhere, a missing link in the communication line. And what piece have we missed? Where did we go wrong? And how can we tie that back into a win? And so I always say it's in the little details. And again, we just work the problem. So I was trying to come up with this really great story of a success. And I realized it was kind of frustrating because I think we find the wins every day, right? And so a couple of examples I had was, finding product. We know that in the heart of the season, our corn, some of the best corn or beans, it could be either one. We don't have they're gone, they're sold out. And so a lot of times it's kind of playing matchmaker. Who do I know has extra units? Who needs them? I think it was last year coming home from a meeting, I brought a few bags back to get that back in time. We're talking about shipping. We're talking about LTLs, who can get it there in time. Hey, the grower is going to the field, in 2 days, and that product better be here. And so sometimes the win is finding that few bags or a lot of bags and getting it in the right hands. And again, it's communication. It's putting your ear to the ground, knowing who's got what, and just proving time after time that can make a difference. Another one, just walking somebody through their bill, right? Grower calls in or an ISR and says, "I just don't understand this." And we break it down, and that's kind of fun when you find here's the issue. We didn't account for this trait, or we, just didn't figure it right, but here's the answer and why. And then let's fix it. We've got some options, right? That's one. But I think it was last season. We had a grower who, we deal in relationships. We deal in relationships, in genetics, and we're confident in both. We had a grower who had been a long-standing customer of ours, and also the ISR. And the grower was going through some tough times. And they were working some things behind the scenes and needed their financing to come together. And it just hadn't yet. And we had a bank working on it. We were trying to give them some time. And because of the relationship I had with the ISR and the relationship that the ISR had with the grower, and the bank stepped in and were able to help them out kind of in the nick of time. Everybody just jumped through hoops faster than they would have. And something that looked like it shouldn't have came together or wouldn't have for just a random grower. Everyone valued their business and their relationship so much. And the trust that we've had, they were a paying grower for well over a decade for us. They had proven, right? And, we're living through a pretty tough time now. Yeah. And I remember back I was a kid of the 80s. Mm-hmm. I remember someone did that for our family farm. And again, kudos, my dad is still farming, how many years later? He's 80. And I'm pretty proud of that, to know that, again, that grit, that tenacity, making it, and someone believing in the operation enough to keep it going, and the trust. And again, the pay history, your word means something, just watching that come together. And guess what? They're still growers of ours. And when people hold their word and do what they say they're going to do, that has a lot of pull. So watching financial institutions, our business, our ISR, and the grower, everyone do what we needed to do, and that was pretty amazing. That was a win.
Yeah. You refresh my memory. You started with Stine in 2018?
17.
2017. So during your time here, how would you say that the space you work in has changed just since you came to Stein?
It's pretty exciting, actually. I know sometimes we think we move slow, but when you think back 9+ years, 8.5 years, we've came a long way. And when I think about some of the projects, the cleanup things we did, we were just kind of sales support was I don't know, muddle through the paperwork, like figure some of these things out. I would say we're really the hub for our processes. We were say Stine is pretty linear. We can go right to you. I sit right between you and Myron. Harry is accessible, but we don't want to bug you guys with just the day-to-day business things. And so I would tell you, I look at my job as a pie shaped. And over the years, to note, Stein's not just the retail. It's not just the farm. It's not just the genetics. There's so many different pieces of our pie. And when you understand where you fit in with that, I think we can be way more effective and efficient than we used to be.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, that was a lot of not very fun projects. And I made a few mistakes. But, every one of those, you learn and it made us better. And so I would say we're a trusted area now. And I hold that pretty proud, that people work with us to get the answers we need. Chuck is amazing. Susan in accounting is amazing. Chris is amazing. You guys are. It's just we need to get the job done in a pretty efficient manner. And I would say we do our best to get the job done.
Well, and I would agree, and I think you guys have done a good job of crafting that area of sales support, particularly as that first line of defense. As I said, sure, once in a while you get the accolades, but a lot of times it's not always concern, but maybe it's a question. They just need a champion, somebody to take that and help them understand or help them figure it out. And I think your team has done a fantastic job of kind of picking up that mantle, right? So when the phone rings, somebody has a question, somebody has a concern, how do we address it?
So I hope you remember that when you gave me the job offer years and years ago, you said, I need an office champion. And so it's fun to watch.
Hey,
we're trying to live it.
You win one once in a while, don't you?
Every once in a while.
So I know over the years you've, again, I asked you the question about mentors because I think I also see you, I think that's something that's important to you. And I see you give back through 4-H and other things. And so I guess I wanted to ask you, as you think about this field of agriculture that you've been in, as you think about young people who are just starting out in their lives and looking at careers, what advice do you give to maybe someone who's just starting out in let's say the seed industry or agriculture in general?
So what I would say is 3 things. Know your products. If you're going to come work in the seed industry, know your products. Know why you're proud. I know that I'm proud to work at Stine Seed because we have great genetics. We have great products. They are tested. They're true. We have all the backing of that. I don't have to worry, gosh, are our products good? We know they're good. So know your products. Know your people. Know your people as in your customers. My customers are our sales force and our growers. But, if you're an ISR, those are your growers. Know your people. Know what makes them tick. Know what keeps them up at night. Know what makes them happy. Know what they need. And also know your resources. So know the team that you have backing. I know my team and I can pull that in if I can't answer. Again, no one cares if it's Renae answering or David or who. All they want is the answer.
Yeah.
And so who's going to get back and pay attention to those little details? And my issue that keeps me up at night might not be the same as you, but that doesn't matter if I'm working for you, right?
Yep.
So know your products, know your people, and know your resources of people that surround you.
So what would you say is the most rewarding part of the work that you do today?
So I know that I get to work with, trusted seed advisors, seedsmen and women all across the U.S. And each of those people is an independent sales rep. So that means you have a bottom line. That means you have a business goal. And I get to play this little part in that to help make those people successful. That also means we work for Stine Seed Company. We're helping Stine to be successful. And in that, a little cliche, but we are helping people feed the world. And that's exciting knowing, we help on a small level every day, but really it's a bigger focus in the world. That's exciting.
So, I love the fact that, everybody comes to this from their own perspective and has their own stories, and your story is great. I guess, what would you hope that somebody listening to this, what do you hope they would take away from this, from your story and your experience?
Mm-hmm. So I say you never know where life's going to lead you, right? I was going to be the independent working lady, and then I fell in love, and then I had these kids, and, then I became a mom, and I always knew I could have the career, but I couldn't always be the mom at the time I needed. And so one of the sacrifices, but best choices ever made, was I stayed home a few years with my kids. And now we're almost empty nesters, but I've been back to work. What I would say is I thought I wanted to be an ag ed instructor and teach ag and teach leadership and instruct that way. And I kind of laugh now when I think about it. I get to do those things every day at Stine Seed, just in a different capacity. And I get to live that every day. And I take great pride in that. And we get to work with some of the best people. And so you just never know where life's going to lead you doing what you love.
So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and opportunity will find you some way.
Yep.
Well, awesome. Well, it's been great having you on the Seedcast, Renae. Again, you're an integral part of our team, and I'm sure that ISRs everywhere would agree that the work that you do helps support them and their growers. So thanks for everything you do, and thanks for talking with me today.
Thanks, David.